To understand Japan, you first need to understand the ground it sits on. Japan is an archipelago of approximately 6,800 islands sitting directly on the Pacific Ring of Fire, the most seismically and volcanically active zone on the entire planet. Four major tectonic plates meet beneath Japan: the Pacific, the Philippine, the Eurasian, and the North American plates, grinding against each other in a constant slow-motion collision that has been shaping and reshaping the Japanese islands for millions of years. The result is a nation that experiences approximately 1,500 earthquakes every single year. Most are small, tremors that residents barely notice anymore. But the major ones are devastating. The Great Kanto earthquake of 1923 killed over 140,000 people and destroyed Tokyo and Yokohama almost completely. The Kobe earthquake of 1995 killed over 6,000 people and caused over $100 billion in damage. The Tohoku earthquake and tsunami of 2011, the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in Japan, triggered a wall of water that reached heights of 133 feet and killed nearly 16,000 people, while simultaneously triggering the Fukushima nuclear disaster. Japan does not have the luxury of ignoring natural disaster. It has had to build an entire civilization around surviving it. What Japan did in response to living on this geological knife edge is one of the most remarkable stories of human engineering and social adaptation in history. Japanese building codes are among the strictest and most sophisticated on Earth, developed through decades of painful lessons learned from earthquakes that destroyed entire cities. Modern Japanese buildings are engineered to sway during earthquakes rather than snap, using flexible structural systems, deep foundations, and sophisticated damping technology that absorbs seismic energy rather than resisting it. The base isolation system, where an entire building sits on a series of rubber and steel bearings that allow the structure to move independently of the shaking ground beneath it, was pioneered and perfected in Japan. Tokyo Skytree, the tallest tower in Japan at 2,080 feet, uses a central shaft damping system inspired directly by the design of traditional Japanese pagodas, which were engineered 1,000 years ago to survive earthquakes through a similar principle of flexible central support. Japan's early warning system for earthquakes and tsunamis is the most sophisticated on Earth. Hundreds of seismic sensors across the country and on the ocean floor detect the first signs of a major earthquake and send automated warnings to phones, televisions, and public announcement systems within seconds, giving people precious moments to take cover before the shaking arrives. Coastal communities have built massive seawalls, some over 40 feet high, to protect against tsunamis. Evacuation routes are marked on every street. Tsunami drills are conducted regularly in coastal schools and communities. Japan has turned the knowledge of disaster into a systematic, engineered, practiced response that saves thousands of lives every time a major event occurs. But Japan's greatest test was not geological. It was human. World War II left Japan in a state of almost total destruction. American firebombing campaigns had burned out the centers of dozens of Japanese cities. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had been obliterated by atomic bombs in August 1945, killing between 129,000 and 226,000 people in 2 days. The Japanese economy had essentially ceased to function. Infrastructure was destroyed. The population was starving. The military that had dominated the nation's politics and culture for decades had been completely dismantled. Japan surrendered on September 2, 1945, and faced the task of rebuilding from the most complete devastation any modern nation had experienced. What happened next became known as the Japanese economic miracle. Within 15 years of the war's end, Japan had rebuilt its industrial base and was growing at rates that economists had never seen before. Within 25 years, it had become the world's second largest economy. Within a generation, the country that had been reduced to rubble was producing the most reliable automobiles, the most advanced electronics, and the most innovative technology the world had ever seen. Companies like Toyota, Sony, Honda, Panasonic, and Canon went from rebuilding destroyed factories to dominating global markets in a time frame that still astonishes economic historians. How did Japan do it? The answer lies in something deeply embedded in Japanese culture, a concept called kaizen. Kaizen is a Japanese word that means continuous improvement. It sounds simple. Its implications are profound. The philosophy of Kaizen holds that every process, every system, every product, and every practice can always be made slightly better, and that the relentless pursuit of those small improvements compounds over time into transformational change. In the aftermath of World War II, Japanese industry adopted Kaizen as its fundamental operating principle. American quality management expert W. Edwards Deming, largely ignored in the United States at the time, was invited to Japan, and his ideas about quality control, process improvement, and statistical analysis became the foundation of Japan's post-war industrial strategy.
Toyota developed what became known as the Toyota Production System, a manufacturing philosophy built on Kaizen principles that eliminated waste, empowered workers to identify and fix problems at every level, and produced cars of extraordinary reliability at unprecedented efficiency. The Toyota Production System became the most studied and most widely copied manufacturing system in history, adopted by industries from automotive to healthcare to software development around the world. But Kaizen was not just a business strategy. It became a cultural orientation, a way of approaching every aspect of life with the assumption that things can always be done better, more efficiently, and more carefully than they were done before. This cultural orientation toward constant improvement is one of the most important explanations for why Japan recovered so fast and built so well after the complete destruction of the war. Japan's extraordinary safety is not just about engineering and economics. It is deeply rooted in cultural values that shape how Japanese people relate to each other and to their society. Japan has one of the lowest crime rates of any major developed nation on Earth. The murder rate in Japan is a fraction of that in the United States. Violent crime is so rare that many Japanese people report almost never thinking about personal safety in their daily lives. Children in Tokyo ride public transport alone from elementary school age, a practice that would be considered unthinkable in most American cities, but is completely normal in Japan. Lost wallets are regularly returned with all cash intact. The concept of meiwaku, the deep social discomfort of causing inconvenience or trouble to others, acts as a powerful cultural regulator of behavior. Japanese social culture places enormous emphasis on group harmony, personal responsibility, and consideration for others. These are not just polite customs. They are the invisible infrastructure of one of the world's safest societies. Public spaces in Japan are immaculately clean, despite having almost no public trash cans, because Japanese cultural norms make littering genuinely unthinkable to most people. During the 2011 earthquake and tsunami disaster, one of the most catastrophic events in modern Japanese history, there was virtually no looting. People stood in orderly lines for emergency supplies. Communities organized themselves without being told to. The social cohesion that Japanese culture produces is as much a part of Japan's safety as any earthquake-resistant building or early warning system. Japan's story is extraordinary, but it is not without serious challenges that will define the country's future. Japan has the oldest population of any major nation on Earth. With a median age of approximately 49 years and one of the lowest birth rates in the developed world, Japan faces a demographic crisis that threatens the very foundation of its economic model. There are more adult diapers sold in Japan than baby diapers, a statistic that captures the demographic reality more vividly than any graph. The working age population is shrinking. The pension system is under enormous pressure. Rural communities across Japan are emptying as young people move to cities, leaving behind aging populations in villages that may not exist in another generation. Japan has historically been deeply resistant to immigration, relying instead on automation, robotics, and productivity improvements to compensate for its shrinking workforce. It now leads the world in robotics development and deployment, in part out of genuine necessity. Japan also faces the ongoing challenge of its relationship with its World War II history, particularly with China and South Korea, which remains a source of regional tension that shapes diplomacy, trade, and security arrangements across East Asia. And the geological reality has not changed. Japan still sits on the ring of fire. The next major earthquake is not a question of if, it is a question of when.